everybody.
What's up?
Welcome back to Bonefish.
Welcome. You're hearing some of the sweet psychedelic sounds of musician Dustin Wong, who we will be speaking to here in a minute.
Before we proceed with our interview, Bonefish would like to first sincerely apologize for our digression during our last episode when I compared Animal Collective to Limp Bizkit. I don't know what was going through my mind, if it was just I just had a bad day. But I realized I compared one of our favorite bands to one of the most problematic and toxic Y2K bands.
I mean,
I don't know what to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. We forgive you for being wrong about Moonjock.
Yeah, I appreciate the mob is helping me see the light. Yeah, didn't mean to offend anyone. Just kidding. I mean, I kind of like Limp Bizkit.
But did you actually for real have a Limp Bizkit phase?
I mean, didn't anybody like that? Old millennial?
I did not.
You did not at all.
No. I mean, you're a couple years older than me. Maybe that,
yeah,
counts for it.
But, no, we're saying this because we saw some Reddit comments that made us laugh. I guess I talk too slow. I'm that.
You're, I think, quote, stoned out, unquote.
The stoned out guy.
Love the feedback. Love the comments. Love the engagement.
Yeah, keep it coming.
Keep it rolling. We don't
keep
have
it
to
rolling. What?
Oh, I didn't even do that on purpose.
But yeah, all you boneheads out there, my buddy Matt from Colorado, shout out to Matt, anointed listeners, boneheads. And
what's up, Matt?
I like that. I think it's cool.
Boneheads.
Yeah.
Definitely better than boners.
Yeah. But definitely, if you got any questions, comments,
insights, corrections.
Yeah, we will run corrections on this podcast. So if we call a wrong, purple bottle from the wrong month in 2006, let us know,
Yeah, I would say factual corrections and just moral. If we're just morally incorrect and wrong.
Yeah.
Call us out.
Basically, we need attention and, give it to us.
We're so
bonefishpod@gmail.com.
lonely.
There is an epidemic of male loneliness. Have you read those articles?
What's the cure, dude?
The cure? More Animal Collective.
The cure is throwing on Merriweather with your homies and
smoke a blunt.
Vibing out. Boy, do we have an episode today for the boneheads out there.
Oh, yeah.
We got to chat with the solo artist Dustin Wong, formerly of the spaz rock band Ponytail. He's since done a number of solo records under his own name. Just recently released a solo album, Perpetual Morphosis, on the legendary Chicago label Hausu Mountain.
Great label, yeah.
And a collaborative record with Bryn called Texture 2.
On Leaving Records.
Awesome musician. I saw him open for Animal Collective in 2019 in Big Sur. He was with Takako Minakawa then. Yeah, rad guitarist, looper, layerer, experimental, sojourner, journeyman. And then we're also going to talk about the newly released Reset in Dub, the dubification of the recent Panda Bear and Sonic Boom record Reset. So stick around for that. And now, enjoy our conversation with Dustin Wong. Here we are, it's Bonefish, podcast about psychedelic electronic music, experimental sounds. I'm Christian.
Hey, I'm Justin.
And we've been talking about the band Animal Collective a lot, but not all the time. Today, we're joined by Dustin Wong.
Hello.
Who is a musician, solo artist, collaborator, maker of very cool sounds. We're stoked to chat with you today. How's it going, Dustin?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, so many places we could begin, but I thought I could say how I was first exposed to your music, which was 14 years ago. I was at Pitchfork Festival in Chicago. I think I was waiting to see like Waves or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And Ponytail played.
Yes.
And I hadn't heard of you guys before, but me and my friend and I had driven up from Arkansas to Chicago for the festival. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Ponytail came on. I think you guys opened with Beg Waves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
From the incredible album Ice Cream Spiritual. And my friend Caleb and I like looked at each other, just kind of like, okay, here we go.
Right.
It was amazing. I fell in love with Ponytail from that point forward. Oh. Such an incredible show. Ponytail was such an incredible live band. And yeah, it was a cool, I guess, introduction to your world. Also Jeremy Hyman, the phenomenal drummer. Yeah, I guess if we could a little bit just talk about Ponytail to kick things off and kind of... I heard that started from a class project or something like that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's true.
So I was in Oakland when my best friend from high school was attending the Maryland Institute, and he was telling me about all these classes that he was taking. It's like, if you take this class, you just work on one project and you're forming a band. And then at the end of the semester, you have a festival with all the bands from class.
That's how school should be.
Yeah.
And I was like, all my classes here are so boring compared to what you're describing. So I visited him spring break, and I was totally convinced. It's like, I got to move here to Baltimore. And then I got that class, and what the teacher did was he lined everybody up in a circle, and he sat or stood in the center, and then he would point to random people. It's like, you and you look good together. You and you are a band. And
just off of what? Pure vibes?
Vibes, yeah.
Nice. I love it.
It was just like, he would pick the guy, that looked like the crust punk, and then like put it was like very general. Like, all right, I'll bring the crust punks together.
Is this day one of class?
Day one of class. It was like a blizzard. It was super cold. And
so you were how old and what year?
I was probably 21 or 22, something like that. And like first semester senior, because I transferred. And then my professor was like, all right, Dustin, you're a senior, so you take care of the freshman kids.
Oh,
so
nice.
And there's like 4 other kids. It's like Jeremy, Willie, Ken, and then this guy, Michael. And we got together, and then I had like a little practice space, the house I was living in, and we got together, and it kind of clicked, the first 2 practices. We like recorded like a demo using a video camera, like the audio of the tapes like digitized onto the computer, and then made CDRs, and then we played the Parapalooza. It was called Parapalooza. The class was called Parapainting, and we had a blast. And then I thought that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, all right, let's enjoy life.
We got an A.
Yeah, it was fun. But then, Jeremy, who played the drums for Ponytail, was like, no, we're going to play actual shows at real venues, and we're going to go on tour. And I was like, that's so ambitious. Like, wow. I didn't even expect that.
Yeah.
And so we started doing that. Like, we booked our first tour through MySpace.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like searching for bands.
Was this like 06, 07 or something? Or
Probably
around there?
05. Yeah.
05, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, peak MySpace
Mm-hmm.
era.
And then, yeah, you get the top 8 bands of that band.
Yeah.
You start to see their circle and then the overlaps. It'd be like, oh, there's so many overlaps of this band. Let's get in touch with this band.
Nice.
And strategizing like that.
Yeah.
Do you remember any bands you got in touch with?
There was this, well, speaking of Chicago, the Killer Whales was a band that played that same festival.
Yeah.
And different band, but that first US tour I've ever done, we played with Killer Whales at this just, bar venue. And essentially like ska rocksteady band.
Nice.
But great.
Yeah.
Really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you because I've always loved Baltimore as a city, and I was always curious about like the music scene there, and
Yeah.
what was it like when you were kind of there in terms of maybe the artistic community or bands or
I think when I moved there, what was kind of happening was like noise music, free jazz, and kind of like, weirdo improvised music. Because there was a festival called the High Zero Festival, which was all about experimental music and improvisation. And there's a venue called the Red Room, which does more jazz-based stuff. And there was a kind of a DIY venue in West Baltimore called Tarantula Hill. And they would do more noise, sometimes like performance art stuff. And then when I moved, right around the same time when I moved there to Baltimore, like Dan Deacon moved to Baltimore and then started that whole Lamp City thing that was kind of, filled another hole in the whole kind of the scene, because like sometimes, it can be too serious with experimentation and like improvisation where you needed a little bit more humor. And I think there was some cross-pollination that was starting to happen and lightening things up, which is really good, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that was totally the Ponytail vibe. At that time in my life, I remember Ponytail opening up this new pathway. Like, I wasn't into bands like Deerhoof yet or anything, and I feel like seeing you guys at that time opened me up to, this sort of like lighter, crazier, kind of more fun, more fun zone. Yeah, I remember like seeing Willie hop around on stage making like crazy faces, and, like yelping, and then like you were doing these cool moves, and yeah, it was such a blast. Late for school, such a jam.
It's so dumb too.
In the best way, though.
Right. I mean, in a good way. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm late for school. If you haven't listened to Ice Cream Spiritual yet, check it out. It's very worth your time. Definitely. As is all of your music, I would say. So since Ponytail, which released 3 albums, and which broke up in 2011?
10, 11, yeah.
Okay. Were you still in Baltimore at that time, or what?
I was, and I was kind of going through some changes, relationship changes, and I don't know. Have you heard of this band called Dope Body at all? No. They were from Baltimore.
Tell me more.
They're like, kind of has this like grunge metal, new metal influence. Like they were doing Limp Bizkit influence stuff before it was cool.
That came up on our last episode.
Yeah, because like that sound is cool now, right?
Well, yeah, it's like all the Zoomers, man. They love the new metal vibe. Yeah,
like that kind of creepy chorus guitar.
Yeah, like the whisper yelling.
But I guess, but they were more raw. Dope Body was way more raw.
Okay,
and like the singer for that band, out of nowhere, was like, "You need to play a solo show," and I didn't have a set or any like performative material, and the band has already broken up, and I was like, so I spent like a weekend, like working on stuff, and then I came up with a 20-minute set, and that became like part of the record I put out with Thrill Jockey called Infinite Love.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like
Which
solo
is like
guitar.
the two-sided one that's like long sides.
Yes.
Each one, right? Yeah.
Yes. And like loop guitar, mostly pentatonic, and like just building.
Love that.
Yeah.
And so, had you done like guitar looping stuff like that before?
Yeah.
Or that was kind of like,
It was out of just experimenting. Like when Ponytail would tour, when we would sound check, there might be like a little, like a little block of time where I can do stuff, and I would just, that was the only time where I could experiment. Like while I was on tour, I would use those times to like mess with things. So like the palette was there.
Yeah.
And then I developed it when I got asked to. And I'm so thankful for that, because I don't think it wouldn't have happened without that invitation.
Yeah. I wonder if that sort of outside prompt maybe kind of set the tone or influence some of like your writing that's come since then. Like sort of, I don't know, I get the sense that there's maybe the use of like outside constraints or different things in your music. Maybe not.
Methodology, like
yeah, or just having it, the idea of someone asking you like, hey, can you play this show, and like sort of meeting
it
like a
becomes that
response.
catalyst.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need that little push from a friend.
Yeah, or a deadline. I feel like I
Deadlines are great.
I like live and die by deadlines. So.
I love deadlines.
Yeah.
I don't get it too
You
much.
gotta feel like the world's ending, a little bit to create,
And by finishing this, it might help by saving the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that show, were you like, oh, cool, there's more here? Or was like, what was kind of your own
I
response?
felt the potential. It felt seminal and made me develop more, and then made 3 records in that same method. And then I feel like 3 has been a real theme. It's like I make 3 records of a certain sound, and then I have to move on.
Yeah. Trilogy. The old trilogy method.
Yeah.
At what point and what brought you out to this end of the country, to LA?
To LA? Well, after doing solo stuff, I met this Japanese artist named Takako Minekawa.
Who you've also made 3 records with.
I also made 3 records with, yes. And she has a son. And at the time we were in a relationship. And her son was like, he was watching all these coming of age movies, American high school movies.
Okay.
And, it's like all these kids, like, it's the end of school, they're getting drunk, they're by the lake, they might be making out. And I think he was really enamored by that.
Yeah, classic American summer.
Yeah.
Were you in America at the time, or?
No, we were in Tokyo.
Okay.
And he's like, I want to go to school in America. And we're like, okay. And through, some connections, like, he was able to attend high school in Culver City.
Oh, crazy.
And so we went with him. And but then the pandemic happens,
Yeah, wow. So I saw you perform with Takako in Big Sur.
Oh, with Animal Collective.
Nice.
It was like 2019,
yeah,
I think,
before the pandemic.
right before the pandemic. It was one of those shows I had gotten tickets for like super early, because to go to Big Sur, do the whole thing, camping, it's a big to do.
Yeah.
Like months and months in advance. And then after I bought the tickets, between that time and the show happening, one of my like best friends scheduled his wedding for the day before the show. So ended up kind of truncating the trip. We still made it, but it was like, up super late. Like I DJ'd that wedding, so I was like up super late the night before. And then the next morning we like woke up and drove to Big Sur just in time to like get our camping spot. And and get to the show. But yeah, that was a phenomenal show. I mean, that's probably the second time I encountered your music after Ponytail, sort of how I kind of refound your music and
Did we talk?
Got to know your solo stuff. I don't think so.
No?
No.
Okay.
I mean, who knows? I mean, it's the Henry Miller Library. I mean, as you know, is so cool and magical, and there's
Love it.
it's like a 300 cap space, so there's not many people there.
And without even taking anything, it just feels psychedelic.
Yeah.
It is. Big Sur is the drug, or the library. Yeah,
Absolutely. And that's the only drug I took that night. No, just kidding.
Psych.
But yeah, you played with Takako. I think this would have been after your third album.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And that tour was crazy in a way because we improvised every night.
Okay.
And I've never done that before. Just kind of decided on it. And, and we recorded everything, almost everything, but we haven't done anything with it. But it was a really great learning experience, just of exploring and experimenting.
Yeah. Does it feel like risky at all doing that? Or does it feel like...
it is. It is. But you're like trying to find the different pockets and moments for addition or change. And it was a great education in that way.
Yeah. How do you, I guess, like prepare for like a tour like that where, I guess, is every night different? Do subsequent nights build on previous nights?
Yeah.
How does that kind of work? Like, do you bring raw material sort of?
We have the palette, like, because like we both have the micro sampler keyboard, which is like sample based, and there's all these sounds and banks. So we know those sounds and the equipment that we're using, like the pitch shifting pedals or the looping pedals, and just trying to listen to each other, just being present. And what we'll do is, we'll ask the engineer at the venue to like record onto the digital recorder that I brought. And then on the drive to the next venue, we might listen to it. And we might listen to it twice through. Be like, that was a good moment. That was a meandering moment, And we'll work off of that too. Yeah. So that will be the process of a tour.
Cool. In sort of your own kind of musical journey, has improvisation always been there? Is it something you kind of found along the way? I guess even going back to like the Ponytail days, I mean, that I'm not sure to what extent improv was involved in that band. Certainly there seemed to be structure.
I was so bad at it.
No.
Yeah. Like, it was like always baby steps because like I was so naive, like learning how to play the guitar started with shapes.
Yeah.
And then figuring out they were scales. But when we were making songs, it was just towards the end, it felt very tedious because we didn't have the knowledge, or the theories. And,
with Ponytail, you mean?
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like, it was like, oh, that's a key? I didn't know that. That kind of thing.
I'm still kind of there. I'm still trying to figure out keys.
Did you have formal training growing up, or?
I did piano growing up, but that was the Suzuki method, which is more like they teach you the pieces rather than teach you music.
Okay,
Does that make sense? Like as if they can. Maybe it's like this guy's really good at painting the Mona Lisa, but that's all he can paint. If that makes sense.
Gotcha.
But like, if you know how to paint, you can paint anything, right? And that's what you want.
Yeah.
When you want to teach music to people, it's like you want them to play music, not play pieces.
Yeah.
So how did you get to that point of playing music?
I think it was like, because like the solo guitar stuff is very composed, and then. I think it was actually in Japan when I would play shows and like the promoters would suggest, would you like to do a session with the headliner? like totally free improvised. And I was like, that's crazy. I've never had that proposed to me at shows before. And I was kind of bad at it, but I was still like, this is really interesting and I want to explore this more. And it's almost like playing sports. Like the defense is on you. It's like, where am I going to go? I only know how to go right, but I'll try it differently.
Nice.
Improvising is like so interesting to me, or just, well, like, what does it mean to you? Like, what's the most important thing about, like, say, improvisation?
I mean, for me, it feels just people coming together, like disparate ideas, disparate ideals, being able to exist in the same space. And at times they might be in conflict with each other. And then there's moments where it feels like free improvisation is going in the realm of free cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the moment for me.
Yeah, I also feel like sometimes it's knowing when not to play.
Yes.
And I'm going to just listen.
Yep.
It's the notes you don't play.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
So since we brought up that tour with that incredible Big Sur show, I did look up that tour and noticed that you played a venue in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
Called Kane's Ballroom.
Yeah.
Which was the venue I grew up going to.
Really?
Yeah, I lived in Arkansas, would drive like
that was your
2
kind of
hours.
local.
Yeah, and it's an old kind of country ballroom.
Yep.
But it's got a pretty cool vibe. But yeah, do you have memories from that show or anything, or and then just that tour in general?
I mean, that was the first show with them on that tour, and yeah, I remember all the wood, and then kind of, I feel like everybody that worked there had beards. And I remember the crowd being very supportive and also freaky.
Yeah.
This was their fall 2019 tour, right?
Yes.
What was it like touring for them? Had you kind of known? Did you have a concept of that band before then, or how did that come about? I guess how did that tour and that opening slot?
It was like there was some overlap where Jeremy might play for the Slasher Flicks or even for Animal Collective.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
he also drummed for Dan Deacon, I think.
Yeah.
Amazing drummer.
Great, and sometimes I would be in the same dinner table at a restaurant or something, and I would probably embarrass myself. But I definitely looked up to them.
Yeah.
And, when we got the call to do the tour, I was very, very excited. I've done the tour with Slasher Flicks too.
Nice.
And that was like another, I don't know Dave fully, even though I've been on tour with him. Mm-hmm. It's like, he's so quiet.
Right. Yeah. And tour's not sometimes it's like a hangout vibe. Sometimes
yeah. You're talking about a commercial or something very random. But what I felt is that they're nice people, Dave has he has a sensitivity. Mm-hmm. And, like Noah felt like Johnny Depp.
Yeah, he's definitely, well, I don't want to say he's the Depp of the crew.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you mean just like a star, like kind of.
But also his demeanor too,
like he's really cool.
Like he kind of talks like Johnny Depp.
Wow.
No, that was my impression.
I gotta listen to him. I could.
Now I gotta go back and watch.
I could see it.
Noah YouTube videos.
I mean, Johnny Depp's a musician, so maybe there's a chance for a collab at some point in the future.
Yeah.
I think he at least looks like he knows how to play guitar.
That's cool, but that must have been cool getting to see them perform from every night. And
yeah, and the music with Takako too. I know it. Speaking of like the improvisation, did that sort of have a role in the studio records too, or kind of, can you talk about sort of that collaborative process?
I think we finished the third record and we toured on it, in Japan. The third record is called Our Euphoria, and it was a kind of a rough tour where we drove around Japan and we would play like maybe to at most 30 people, and some shows were like 5 people. And I was like, wow, this is pretty tough. And then we moved to LA. One of the first shows we played that material, but then what happened was like the engineer turned us up really loud, like too loud. And it wasn't enjoyable. And it made us just drop the whole let's play composed songs.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It was just like, we're going full improv. We're going to play to the speaker, not to our songs. Does that make sense?
Interesting.
Like,
Yeah,
we're like playing to the nature of the PA.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Kind of trying to match the energy of the space, I guess, or yeah. As opposed to coming in somewhere with a predetermined thing. That it's interesting thinking about that, like, dichotomy of having a predetermined set list is something you almost have like less control over than something that's sort of more spontaneous and on the spot, I guess, depending on like your level of skill as an improviser. But
yeah,
I hadn't thought of that. Like,
it's definitely something I've been dealing with the past 20 years. Was like dealing with what is said and what is improvised. And because like the set that Ponytail had, we played the same songs in the same order for a few years straight. It never changed. And towards the end, it got to a point where I was like, I'm thinking about laundry or what pizza I want to get.
Yeah.
You know,
especially if you're playing like in a laundromat.
Right. Right.
Which Ponytail has done.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's another one of those duality things where it's like, that's probably one of the reasons you guys were so good and fun live, is you just did the same thing straight through. But yeah, at the same time, it's like, if it's your day job, you're like, I am so over this.
Yeah. And I think I wanted that kind of second nature feeling, but I wanted something different every time. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm still exploring that.
Speaking of playing music in a laundromat, what are some of the weirdest places you've played? Or spaces?
Whoa. I mean, I played in a public bathhouse. It was super reverby.
In Japan?
Wow.
In Japan. Like a sports bar in Montana. Like, it's so normal to the people living there, but
right.
It's just like, it almost feels foreign. And this was like when I was doing solo guitar stuff, and I was with 3 other bands from Baltimore, and we were booked there, and they're all like, we're not playing. I was like, why?
Come on.
It's like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. It was a sports bar?
Yeah, and in Montana.
Montana.
Right. Billings, Montana, I think. And so I just went up there, and I was like, hey, man, I brought my amp. That's all I need. Just turn down the music, and then I'll start playing. And then I started playing, and then all these drinks started popping up on stage. People, but like, you know, really weird looking, like neon green drinks, and with like, you know, candy cherries, and I took a sip. It was so saccharine.
Yeah. That's how the people of Billings
but it was,
show their appreciation.
It was really fun. They really enjoyed it.
That's rad.
And then we asked if we can stay at someone's house, like 7 people.
Yeah.
And this guy was like, yeah, sure. And he was, I don't know if it's true, but he was like, yeah, I used to be the goalie for the U.S. hockey team.
Oh, nice.
And then we all got drunk. And,
some local legends.
Yeah. Nice.
I want to talk about the new music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, new album, Perpetual Morphosis.
yes.
And Texture too, right? That's a collab album.
That's
right?
a collab.
And
yeah.
Texture too.
Yeah, so I feel
Brain.
like I've been listening to that the past couple of weeks. And I feel like, I mean, to me, it feels like early morning music. Like there's a lot of energy, like the neurons are starting to fire. There's kind of like a lot going on.
Oh, interesting.
That's what kind of comes to mind. And yeah, I'm wondering like, where'd this come from?
Well, I met Colin, who's Bryn, and a friend asked me to have him on my Dub Lab show. And at the time, the format of the show was that I interview the guests and then we improvise on the show.
Oh, nice.
And he was there, and there's one other person. I'm really blanking on their name, but we jammed and it felt very natural and easy. We kept playing some shows here and there, and we would practice, maybe like just dabble, but it would always be free form. And it felt very telepathic at times. And this group, outdoor show organization called Floating, asked us to...
Shout out to Floating, I'm a member.
Oh, great. They're great. But yeah, they asked us to play at Elysian Park, and, you know, they record the shows, the sets. So that's basically the record.
Oh, really?
It's the show at Elysian.
So was that the Leaving Records Floating thing?
It was just Floating.
Just Floating, gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we shopped it to Leaving. And
Textures too.
Yeah. Shout out to Leaving Records.
Is there a Textures one? I couldn't.
There is no
so,
texture one.
Okay.
It's like Hot Shots Part 2.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So it's like you have stuff on Bandcamp, you have stuff on Spot. There's, you know, I think you have like 2 Bandcamp pages last time I checked. There's like, it's hard to find a complete list of Dustin Wong. Yeah, I have also been really digging that. I wrote down the words minimal ambient free jazz.
Oh, yeah.
Listening to Textures too. So your guys' partnership in that, Bryn does more kind of like percussive based stuff, or how is it kind of,
It was still very textural. I think there's some roots in like people like Finesse and kind of like you can feel the textures rolling through a space and through your mind. And
it's very physical, like sensory.
yeah, tactile.
yeah.
Reminds
Like very washy and crunchy.
Yeah, headphonesy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminded me of almost like Visible Cloaks.
Oh,
A
interesting.
little bit.
Well,
But also, which reminds me of like some Japanese music, some ambient music as well.
Yeah. Colin, I mean, he lived in Portland for a little bit too, so there was that.
Nice.
Like, I think they lived in Portland around the same time. Visible Cloaks are still there, and
Yeah, whatever happened to those guys?
well, I think they have they have families, and
How dare they?
That'll happen.
but I think they're playing shows with Dip in the Pool, but yeah, and then Colin he has this gear called sensory percussion, which is this new way of picking up signals from different surfaces, and it's not sound based but magnet based, so it's physical. It picks up the vibration of surfaces and it triggers samples, and you can change the parameters. So he can play actual drums and play with textures. So, yeah, that's his setup. And
Yeah.
So that's pretty much mostly an improvisatory piece.
yeah. But he was kind of like meeting him, like talking to him. He'd be like, yeah, I'll be playing video games, and then I'll be sampling the sounds while I'm playing. And then that would be one, like a bank,
Wow.
And
Did you say which video games?
I know he loves Elden Ring. What's the Baldur's Gate?
Right.
So that realm of kind of metal,
Yeah. Sort of
fantasy. Yeah.
Nice.
He loves heavy metal too.
So he drums on physical drums. But
And
there's
also
a magnet.
pads as well, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And then it's like MIDI-fied, or how?
They're not MIDI because they're triggering actual audio.
Oh, okay.
Like
Gotcha.
they're not MIDI, yeah. They're recorded sounds.
Crazy sounds on that album.
Yeah, thank you.
I also really like on your solo album this year. I think it's the last song.
Oh, yeah.
Forgot the name of it.
It's Japanese, yeah. Orihime Hikoboshi.
Love that song. Dig that song.
That's
Thank you.
guitar based, most like guitar.
Yeah,
okay.
mostly. Yeah, no keyboards on that one, I think.
You lived in Japan, but you're half Chinese? Or,
My dad's side, yeah.
like, can you pinpoint like how Japanese music or Chinese music or Eastern music, does that, like, how that informs you as an artist? Or
I mean,
are you conscious of that at all? Or like,
I mean, the sensibilities a little bit because I grew up in Japan.
yeah.
You know, there's certain things like, certain American bands that were popular in America, but then were more popular in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the 60s, like the surf rock band, The Ventures. They were the surf band, for Japan.
Crazy.
Because like all the surf music, like it would use pentatonics and it sounded like traditional Japanese music, but like with its kind of driving force. There's this traditional form in Northeast Japan called tsugaru, just super fast playing, and they call it the Japanese blues. But like, has overlaps with surf music, and like Yellow Magic Orchestra.
Hell yeah.
Were always on TV. Like they're the Beatles of Japan. They were superstars, and you got to see this kind of Japanese Italian disco techno influenced band play on public, national TV. But I felt like J-pop, I didn't like J-pop, growing up. I felt it was very plastic to me. And interestingly, I feel like, when I was in Baltimore, like, I feel like every period has like specific reissues that influence that contemporary time. And 2003 to 2013, like I feel krautrock was being rediscovered.
Yeah.
Like Noi and Cluster and all those bands. And then that made the shift into kankyo music and Japanese ambient and Japanese techno, I think. And that's, without that, it's like, I don't know. And also, we can't forget the book by Chi Shimizu called Obscure Music, which was basically his record collection and just descriptions under every record. And all these record labels that are reissuing now are basically taking it from this book. And
Oh, interesting. Okay. I guess my only really reference point, I have a bit of a learning curve when it comes to like Japanese music, but I've really, really been getting into some of the 80s ambient stuff, like Hiroshi Yoshimura.
yeah,
Man, I love that stuff.
it's beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's just like when I'm working, if I'm stressed out, if I'm not, like, it's just so utilitarian. Like I can, I hope they reissue more of his stuff. I know Light in the Attic was doing some stuff of his, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that krautrock connection is super interesting.
Yeah, and also like tapes from Africa, like Electric High Life, like that definitely influenced Ponytail.
Yeah. Your newest release, Perpetual Morphosis, is that stuff, where did that music come from?
Well, I'm going through the same process right now. It's like I record hours and hours of improvised just sketches when I'm at home. I just sift through them, find things that feel new or different, and edit together into something cohesive, and then record things on top.
Nice.
Mix things, subtract things. And that's basically the process. And so that record, Perpetual, was recorded during the pandemic. And there was actually hours and hours of music recorded before that. And I wished to the universe for my computer to crash because I didn't want to deal with the recordings. And it did. The computer crashed. I was like, all right, I get to start fresh again.
Clean slate.
So then I recorded again. Like regret starting to creep in.
Yeah. Like,
but
careful what you wish for.
But yeah, I like kept at it and then put it together. Yeah.
Yeah. You said you record for hours. When you're doing that, is that sort of improv based, or are you kind of?
Yeah, it's as if I'm playing a show.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, like I'll like get my mind shift as if like it's like, all right, you're playing a set now.
Yeah,
and then
get in the zone.
And then record, yeah.
And then when you go back through and kind of like comb through for cool spots, what is that process like?
Sometimes it's intentional listening.
Okay.
But oftentimes it's peripheral, where it's just playing in the background.
Okay.
And I'm doing other things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of that Brian Eno quote back when he was starting to do kind of the ambient stuff. He had some quote where his goal was to make music that's as ignorable as it is interesting, sort of like you can, and ignorable always struck me as like almost too harsh a word. But
yeah,
I think his idea was like something that can accompany or something that can be the object of intentional.
Yeah, like you can sometimes it's so easy to tune out, but then other times like you're so drawn into it.
Yeah,
at the same time.
Yeah.
But do you still feel like the urge to create is the same as when, say, you were a teenager in your 20s, or like?
I mean, it's totally different. I think.
How is it different?
I mean, I was so much more. The focus and the fire was so different because I didn't know anything. You know, like
so more fire, less focus back then, or
and the focus was there. I just wasn't as productive.
Gotcha.
You know, like I wasn't getting the gains, the equivalent of like the amount of practice I was doing. And it's easier now, but it's harder to find that discovery, that sense of discovery after 20 years of doing it. But like, you know, figuring out the major scale on the guitar was like huge for me. Like I was like, this is it.
Yeah, it's like a shortcut.
Yeah. Now I can play music. Even figuring out the pentatonic scale, like it was, I felt like discoveries, although it's already there, but you know.
Yeah.
Even with gear stuff, like figuring, you know, putting the delay after the looper, like doing something like that, and figuring out that on the DD3, like when you're all the way to the left, what corresponds to an octave is actually not the center, but near K. You know, the word there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we could have a whole other podcast. Probably would need to be a video podcast on like the signal chain for your massive looping setup. Speaking of looping, I also just wanted to mention I have your trio of records from opening for the Mountain Goats guy, John Darnielle, that I think you did on Bandcamp. So ones was sort of just like the text edit thing.
Yes.
And those were sort of like guitar loop.
Yeah, that was like my first. No, actually, no. That was moving to LA, but like outside, like in San Francisco, and I've done those shows with John before.
Oh, cool.
And that was in 2012. But yeah, I did the same. I had the engineer record the sets, and it's not edited. It's basically from start to finish.
Right on.
And
just like this podcast.
Like, not really. It's like right before the pandemic too, and you're starting to hear stories about coronavirus or whatever. And,
yeah, but anyway, I really dig those albums.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, you mentioned floating.
Yeah,
you just did a residency.
Yeah,
with them. I didn't get to make it any of the shows, but I've been to a couple floating events, and then
it's so cool.
It's great.
I feel like that's one of the sort of silver linings of the pandemic is this new embracing of
outdoor shows,
outdoor and daytime. Just,
using
like
public spaces.
Yeah. How did the residency go?
I mean, I love that group so much, and like they brought me back, you know, from not playing shows during the pandemic. And it was with Jeremiah Chu. That was like the
cool.
first show. And it's just the outside during the day, like you can have conversations. It's not non-intrusive. Dogs can be barking. Babies can be crying. It doesn't get in the way. And, you know, when you're in an indoor venue, all the reverberations become a factor of that environment. Mm-hmm. And just the clink of the glass and it gets in the way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the outdoors doesn't have that. When it's at a certain scale, I'm not a big fan of music festivals anymore.
Same.
It's just so fatiguing.
Yeah.
And,
well, now we can do these little micro
and it's
fests.
it's like, it's healing. It's not exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Where was your residency?
The first one was at the Japanese Tea Garden at the Stoyer Stearns. And then the second one was in Hollywood, the Mack Center. And that was a collaboration with the Buto dancer and musician, Kyoko Takenaka. And the last one was up at Zorthian Ranch.
Yeah, that's a wild place. Mm-hmm. I haven't been there for a musical event, but like a couple of years ago, I think probably was pre-pandemic. I stayed there with some friends. You can like rent a couple rooms there just to stay. And it's like sort of an old kind of folk art, like ranch, kind of right in the foothills of Pasadena.
I guess we should explain to people what floating is. It's this roving collective
organization. They organize like outdoor shows. I mean,
LA.
they do. It's not just LA too, though. They've kind of expanded.
It started in LA. Various public spaces, parks, really cool. Sometimes they'll hook up with Leaving Records. And I think they've recently expanded to like Colorado or maybe the Pacific Northwest. I don't know. But you pay like a monthly membership fee. You could like bring guests and stuff. You bring a blanket, chill.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
They've done some kind of indoor stuff too, right? Like
but it's mostly outdoors.
Yeah. Cool.
You got any shows coming up?
Yeah, in September.
Cool.
I have one at Heavy Manners Library on the 16th of September, and then at JACCC in Little Tokyo.
Oh, wow.
They'll be part of In Sheep's Clothing and Dub Lab.
Tight.
And will be inspired by Japanese kankyo music.
Oh,
Sweet.
wow.
Yeah.
When's that?
The 23rd. It hasn't been
advertised. Off the record.
Yeah.
What's your favorite snack?
What's that?
What's your favorite snack?
My snack?
We're going to do a little round robin.
Like savory or sweet?
Ooh, sweet.
Ooh. Strawberry, like a Japanese strawberry shortcake. Like,
wow.
Like you can get those at like the Korean bakeries here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to try one.
It's not too sweet, but it's creamy and spongy.
Speaking of food, didn't you make music for a food restaurant? Food restaurant.
My partner Jess, she makes food.
Sweet.
And
we need those people.
Like Taiwanese influenced. And we did a thing where she made tangyuans, which is like kind of like a mochi in a soup with like a sweet sesame filling. And the soup is kind of ginger-based, syrupy.
Sounds
And
fire.
I made like a soundtrack while people would eat it. So kind of try to evoke what it feels like and what it feels like in your mouth.
Whoa.
Nice. Gotta check that out. I'm picturing some of those like gestation sounds from Texture too. Kind of the...
But I also wanted it to be loungy too.
Right. Yeah. Maybe not digestive based focused.
What's the most psychedelic thing
that I've ever experienced?
Sure. Or like, what is psychedelic to you?
Oh, wow. That's so... I mean, being in LA is psychedelic.
Totally.
It's like, even when you're sober, like, it feels like you're in a dream.
Exactly.
It's wild.
It's definitely the trippiest place I've ever been to.
Or, yeah, I sometimes have to make sure my foot's on the ground, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've done psychedelics and things like that, but I like it when you can notice or can say, wow, that was psychedelic when you're in a sober state.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that kind of, you know, like there's that moment of awareness.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like it could just be like this, enjoying the light hitting the dust, and you can see every rotation of every speck.
I think the weather, nature is like it's one of the most psychedelic things, for sure.
The supermoon happening at this very moment could be
Yeah.
psychedelic. Probably is.
We'll park at the moon.
Well, I remember like hearing about Animal Collective for the first time at like the local bar, like the college bar.
Mm-hmm.
It's called
Would this be in Baltimore or Oakland? Or?
in Baltimore, yeah. It was called the Tavern, and I was with my roommates having a beer, and then this one girl was like excitingly telling us like, I was at the video shoot of this band, like this Animal Collective. They're gonna be huge. And, like they dressed up like a rabbit, and there was like a turtle. It was that. It was that video.
Who can win a rabbit?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And I was like, okay.
It's interesting to attend that shoot and come away thinking these guys are going to be huge.
Was she like, yeah, they're like Baltimore boys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Like, because they're more Baltimore County than city.
Yeah.
You mentioned your, now 20-year career in music and how your own kind of motivations, your own sort of internal journey has changed so much. Also just feels like, I don't know, the world of music has changed a ton in the last couple decades.
In the last 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, it's
How do you survive, man? Like as an artist, how have?
No, it's just profusely bleeding. You know?
Yeah.
But sometimes
Any
there's
advice to I don't know, younger artists or any artists maybe?
There's these new tools every year, it seems, that supposedly like attaches itself to the system. And when Bandcamp started, well, I mean, like, when Radiohead did the name your own price, it was like that was a game changer. And
Right.
like and then like Bandcamp happened, and I'm so glad there's actually kind companies that's supporting music, and now kids can record anything and put it up and publish that. And there wasn't really that 20 years ago. Maybe MySpace was close to that, but I think it's just like building your own world and your expression, and with integrity, and I feel like that's the only advice I can give really to like young musicians. But it's gonna hurt no matter what,
Yeah.
even the successful ones. It's like, we're, just like poets, not as respected as we used to be.
Yeah. It is cool, though, and I find it heartwarming that there are people like you and communities like Floating and Leaving that are outside of the mainstream but still doing it in a place like LA that's like, the home of big entertainment. I guess it's
Right.
It's neat to me that
But there's so many amazing musicians here.
Yeah.
Like, so much talent and willing to share and to collaborate, which is, I don't know, it's a rich scene.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So if LA feels like home, sort of your artistic home at this point, or
I mean,
you've
yeah.
traveled lots.
Yeah.
Been here.
Yeah. I'm going to be here for a little bit, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're thrilled to have you.
Thank you.
Nice.
Dustin Wong, your music is cool. It's awesome, I would even say. Very worth spending your time with if you haven't checked it out. There's so much out there. Yeah, it runs the gamut from Ponytail to minimal ambient to maximal layering. But I feel like it is all inventive, open-hearted, creative and inspiring. And so thank you for making it. And
Thank you.
Yeah,
For sharing your music, mate.
yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, if you're in LA, definitely check out Floating.
Yes.
Yep. Dustin, if people want to
Oh, sure.
check out your
Anything
music.
else you want to plug?
Yeah, right. Well, Perpetual Morphosis is on House Sioux Mountain.
Another awesome label. They're Chicago,
Yes,
right?
Yes, Chicago label. They're great. And they just put out Euglocene's record. I'm a huge fan of him.
Uh-huh.
And then Bryn and me put out a record called Texture 2 on Leaving Records.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I also have some like personal releases on my Bandcamp page that I'm really happy about as well. And my partner Jess does this food thing called Goo Grocery. And
Good Grocery?
Goo Grocery.
Goo Grocery.
Which means mushroom in Chinese.
Uh-huh.
And auntie. And also teaches how to make pickles.
Ooh,
And
I love that.
does
pickle-
like
pickle head over
a
here.
farmer's market thing every Thursday at Chinatown. So.
Oh, wow. That's close to me.
Sick.
All right.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When's your Dub Lab show?
Every first Thursday, of every month.
Thanks for coming by on this little podcast.
No, thank you for having me.
Super Moon Eve, Justin and Dustin and Christian signing off.
Goodbye.
For now.
Goodbye. Tight.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you, Christian.
course.
Thank you, Justin.
No problem.
Psych, we're back.
All right, Reset and Dub, what do you think about it?
So good, man. So fun.
Yeah, I love it as well. I feel like I've been in the dub zone for the past couple years, and this is exactly what I wanted.
Oh, nice.
I never thought I'd hear Panda Bear and like some ska horns, but there they are.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, so Panda has long been a dub proponent. He's often spoken about his love for the genre and how he thinks, sort of sonically, it's just sort of like a perfect combination of sounds.
He likes open space.
Yeah, watery reverbs, tape delays, and here we finally have a fully dubified Panda Bear album. I mean, I know like in terms of mixing and mastering and stuff, and even in song creation, he's been influenced by dub principles for a long time.
Yeah, what I mean.
So here we have a dub master in Adrian Sherwood
Yeah,
coming on the scene, and
yeah,
so
Adrian
Reset
Sherwood.
and dub. I also call it Reset Indica version. Just
I like that.
reset in a lower gear, but
Definitely, yeah, it's a good call. Reset Indica. Sometimes I'm like, man, I like this better than the original album, because I've never. I mean, it's just such a fresh sound. Like, never heard Panda Bear, any members of the band, in like a fully dub zone. What other songs would you say in his catalog like have like dub influences? Because I know he said he feels like there are, but like I don't know if they really stick out to me.
yeah, I mean, you certainly wouldn't call any Panda Bear solo albums like dub records, but I guess I think of like Tomboy in the sense that it's like it's pretty minimal in the sense of like the palette is small.
Yeah,
It's like beats,
A lot of
guitar,
space.
vocals, lots of space. Certainly the vocals on Tomboy are pretty verbed out.
yeah, that's true.
So I think it's maybe more from like a aesthetic, like kind of mixing perspective, like in terms of like, okay, here are the sonics, like here's how I want you to treat them in the mix kind of thing, and like how he thinks maybe like arrangement wise. But certainly none of his music so far has lent itself so much to being dubified, I'd say, as Reset. I mean,
Yeah, I mean this album was on you, and you immediately want to fucking smoke a joint, be outside somewhere in late summer.
Yeah, just outdoor luau party vibes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, dub's got like these very distinct sounds. Like, you know, the dub drums are like the sound of like a live wire. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Go on, keep going on that.
It's hard to describe. It's like one of the signature dub sounds. Anyway,
A live wire?
yeah, like the way a live wire would sound, like when you hear like a live wire hit the ground.
Yeah, like crackling.
Yeah, so like that's in dub a lot. Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Thinking like verbed out like snare rolls, like
That too. Yeah.
sort of. I mean, is that what you're imagining, or what do you?
Yeah, the snare stuff too, and then the just very reverbed out vocals that kind of come out of nowhere, and definitely the kind of slower rhythms. But then like the drum fills too are very dub too.
Mm-hmm.
That's always really cool.
Yeah, taking like little snippets, little melodic snippets, and like tape delaying them, so they just like repeat, and like kind of fade off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the most successful remixes in general, not even counting dub, sort of just give you a chance to spend time with this music in a different way, like whether that's re-examining different parts of the music or highlighting sort of less prominent parts. Like, what I love about Reset and dub is there are a couple of moments where he uses like the supporting harmony in place of like the actual like the song's melody. Like even in the first track, I think he does it. Getting to the point.
Yeah, it's like the background vocal.
Right. Which is so pretty in its own right, and, you know, maybe the more musically astute among us would have, like, picked that out in the regular record, but being able to hear it isolated in the dub version is so cool. And then, all the added instrumentation and ornamentation on the album is crazy. I mean, you mentioned the horns, which is definitely the starkest.
Danger,
sort of,
right? It's like, Danger's got the horns.
Oh, I mean, a lot of the tracks have the horns. I mean, Danger is where it gets into like chopped and screwed territory.
Yeah, Danger's like the one that's like the closest to like a ska song.
Well, they get, like towards the middle, or like, super slows down, and it's.
And then, I mean, there's just
really
a lot
warped.
more low end and just rhythms on this than the original Reset, which is cool. Stuff just really kind of hits in my body. It's just got a straight up beat to it.
In My Body might be one of my favorite, like, dub version improvement over the original version. I mean, I like so many of the reinterpretations, but that one specifically, I was like, oh, this grooves. I also really dig Edge of the Edge. Like, I just think that melody on top of that halftime groove just, like, really goes.
Yeah.
But so Adrian Sherwood, I guess he's sort of famous for being, like, the dude who does kind of, like, crossover dub projects.
Yeah, I had never actually heard of him until now,
so
but man, he killed it.
He did a remix of Spoon's Lucifer on the Sofa called Lucifer on the Moon, which I guess, I mean, I didn't spend a lot of time with that record or the dub version of it, but that's sort of one of his recent ones, which I think was sort of a little more off the wall, sort of out of left field than Reset was.
Cool.
But also, you said you've been sort of in the dub zone the last couple of years. I'm not as much of a dub guy. I mean, I throw on like King Tubby every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, love King Tubby. I think we posted on our Instagram a dub playlist I've been chipping away at for the past couple of years. King Tubby for sure. God, I'm spacing on his name. He just died recently.
Lee Scratch Perry.
Lee Scratch Perry, rest in peace. Got some of that on there. And just other stuff that's like kind of like in the dub universe, but maybe more so a little bit.
The W-verse, if you will.
Yeah. Anyway, check that out if you guys want a little dub primer.
Yeah, we'll link that playlist in the description.
Yeah, it's a fucking sick genre, and it's definitely psychedelic.
I was reminded of what's his fucking name?
Don't go Mitch McConnell on me now, bro. You just froze like,
Hitting you with that Mitch McConnell freeze, dude. Bill Callahan.
Yeah, I saw him open for Big Thief a few weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
What about him?
His record, Dream River, got a dub treatment.
Wow.
Have Fun with God. That was like the kind of, I don't know, indie rock dub version record that came to mind when I was trying to think of like comparative, like full album dub remixes.
Well, I'm trying to imagine a Bill Callahan dub record. That's pretty interesting.
Beer.
Yeah, I mean, it felt a little more like a live band. Like some of the drums on it feel a little bit more like, oh, there's a drummer playing that, as opposed to like maybe a loop type thing.
Yeah, I feel like had a bit of a renaissance. Talabaman had a really great dub track this year called Madhouse Dub. That's on. I'm just looking at the playlist I made. Yeah, that's a great song.
Oh, nice. Love
Perfume
that.
Genius had a great, like, kind of dark dub track on his album last year called Ugly Season. I always really liked that one. Yeah, Yaya Bay. I don't know if you ever listen to her. She's definitely got some dub influences on her records. So yeah, I feel like it's kind of making a comeback a little bit, I think, for sure.
I feel like I'm reluctant to say like Reset and dub is quote unquote like better than Reset, just because it's like you're always with like this the remix record, you're always, you know, standing on the shoulders of what has come before you.
Yeah, there wouldn't be a Reset and dub without Reset.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like the Reset album cycle has really had some legs. It's been a year. Because even before the Reset and dub, there was like a remix, like a deluxe expanded version of Reset with some remixes on it.
Or like an instrumental songbook.
Yeah,
versions?
I wasn't too hot on it. I didn't really listen to it. I didn't really care for the remixes, but
yeah, I remember those. Yeah, you're right. It has had some legs.
Because I mean, Reset came out when the band was touring, and then the tour didn't really start until like the end of the year, and then this year. So I think they needed some kind of content to promote the tour, maybe.
Yeah.
Hence Reset and dub, and then the Dolby Atmos listenings too. Or have you listened to anything in Atmos?
No.
I got an invite to check out Reset in New York. It was the day before the Reset show in New York. I didn't go, but they were going to play Reset and Dolby Atmos. I still haven't heard it. I'm curious.
Which means what exactly? It's like surround sound?
It's
like
basically
stereo. It's like
basic,
5.1 or what?
It's more than 5.1. It's basically like the systems that, like, if you go to a movie theater, like IMAX has Dolby Atmos. I guess Apple Music has it, and like you can listen to it like at home, but it's not the same. Like you basically
right. Well, how would that come across if it's just two channel? Like if it's a stereo channel, I don't understand.
Right. So it's basically like
is being added.
Yeah, basically you need like a lot of money to actually get the full experience.
Yeah.
And like most people aren't like that, and so. But I would like to hear it in like a proper environment and speakers. It's supposed to give it this like 3-dimensional texture.
Okay.
And there's been a lot written about it recently. I think the New York Times had a story about Atmos, and it seems like this is how the dying music industry is trying to put a stake in the conversation and try to stay alive, is through gimmicks like this.
Just like, oh, here's like a Uber premium offering of like,
yeah,
just like another tier to add to like,
yeah, like,
yeah.
I feel like it's not the technology isn't like accessible to everyone yet, really. Like, remember when 5.1 was a thing, like 20 years ago? I bought that. I had a 5.1 Pioneer surround sound system, and they started releasing albums in 5.1.
Okay.
So like I bought like Pet Sounds, and like I had like Rumors, and
here we go.
And it sounded really fucking great, man. Like if you played an album, and especially if you knew the album, things really kind of stuck out more, and you noticed other things.
This is just in your like home stereo setup type thing?
Yeah.
Like you had, okay.
Yeah, 5 speakers.
Nice.
But that faded. But I just remember like, yeah, when like you cared more about your speaker setup, you know, now it's like, oh, you'll just have like a Bluetooth to like a JBL or, you know, or something, or you're listening on your laptop or your phone or your earbuds. Like,
yeah,
I'm trying to change that now, and like,
yeah.
like I bought some old JBLs for my record player that are pretty nice, and I mean I have my Sony headphones that I'll give the proper listen to. But I feel like for a while it was just kind of like, whatever, I'll just listen to this music on this shitty laptop, which we can't do that, man.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I just default to AirPods a lot. I think mostly because I'm just like going about the day doing shit, and also it's just hot in Southern California, and so like to put on big like earmuffs, like big headphones.
Yeah, I'm an earmuff headphone guy.
But definitely my my Sony over ears are definitely the best sounding headphones I have. So I feel like I'll definitely throw those on, you know, when it's important. But so how is Dolby different than 5.1? It's like
more than 5.1.
Okay.
Dolby Atmos is like,
it's just like a more surround sound deal.
Yeah, I guess. And the way it's mixed, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to listen to it in the proper environment. Like, you know, I think I'd be curious to hear how it sounds when you're like listening to music or you're testing out, like if you want to give something like a proper listen, how do you listen to it?
Either on my Sony headphones or just on the monitors in the studio.
Those are pretty good.
Yeah. Definitely could do that more. I mean, I think I'm so used to like listening to stuff, like mixes and stuff for work on these and just sitting in front of my computer that I feel like when I'm away from my computer, I listen better.
Yeah, the like going for a run test is very key, you
Definitely.
know? Or the car test, I feel like is pretty good too.
Yeah.
I feel like my car is pretty good, decent. Anyway.
Yeah. Reset in dub. It's crazy because it's like the original album is itself like through a prism interpretation of, you know, like 50s and 60s pop.
Mm.
Then now we have it like going from that through like another prism of like dub.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's an interesting artifact of like modern sort of plunderphonics, I guess, like sampling based music from decades past that's been now like recycled and regurgitated like 2 different times.
Yeah. It's awesome. I like
as well. Thank you, Adrian. Good stuff, mate. And with that,
we'll see you next time.
Thanks as always for joining. Please get in touch. Bonefish Pod at Instagram, also at Gmail. We love the feedback, positive or neg. We can take it. Thanks, Dustin Wong, for joining us. And take it easy, boneheads.
Peace.
Bonefish.